Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Adija. Thank you so much for joining me again today on the Millennial Social Worker channel. On this channel, I share content about social work, mental health, wellness, lifestyle, food, and everything in between. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Alan Johns. He's a school social worker in the Metro Detroit area, and he's going to be talking to us today about his social work journey as well as social issues that are important to him. I'm so excited to have a conversation with him because he's a male social worker, he's a Black social worker, and there aren't that many in this field. So I would love to hear about his journey in the field of social work and what he does. So without further ado, let's get right into the interview with him. All right, welcome everyone. Like I said, I have a very special guest today, Mr. Alan Johns. He's a social worker and he's going to be talking to us today about the field of social work and what he does in this field. Welcome, 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 Alan. So glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you too. So we're just gonna jump right in. I want to ask you, talk to us a little bit about your social work journey. How did you get to become a social worker?
All right. So, I kind of got into social work from, uh, it was something that I really wasn't expecting. To be honest with you, social work is kind of like I guess my second wind in career. I came from a, art background as well, and and being in a like facility maintenance industry and stuff. So it's just kind of like, well, how did a maintenance slash artist get into social work, right?
Right. How did
yeah.
that
So
happen?
yeah. So um interestingly, just like we all kind of have an epiphany where we have to take risks. Um, and I'm no different. I'm like, okay, I really want to do something different with my life, and I quit my job, and I'm just like, well, you know what? Um, I want to build my business. I want to get into not like it's just certain things you just have to go and do, and that's just kind of what I did. I started building my graphic design business and graphic design video and really growing my business in that regard. But in the process, I started getting into after school programming where I was
Okay.
doing life skill, abstinence training, and the Detroit public schools. Well, in the Metro Detroit schools, like all around Metro Detroit, and and I I grew a passion with connecting with kids and empowering kids, and and as I was growing my passion, I was just like, I'm like, man, I really would like to take this to the next level. And before then, like, I really didn't want to go back to school. I didn't think that I was a school person.
Right.
I had a degree in graphic design, but I really didn't take it the corporate route. I kind of did my entrepreneurial thing with my degree and my skill set. So I told myself like I'm not a school person, but with my wife being the support that she is, and her telling me what's on me telling her what's on my mind and what I was thinking. She's like, yeah, no, you need to go ahead. And social work was one of those.
She's like, that
Was
sounds like
that
social
avenue?
work.
Yeah, that was social work was the avenue, and I was just like, well, okay, well, um, let me do it, and I got into it, and I really like was able to pick up um the heart of the ethics, the principles, just what social work is all about, and the diversity of how you can use um the to be in the field and with the license. I was just like, okay, like so when I went to school, to get my bachelor's and my master's, I was just like, okay, I was fully engulfed in figuring out what I really wanted to do in developing my ideas with helping the the populations that I care about, and I could, that I thought that I can be an impact and be effective to. So
So
yeah, that's
you,
kind of how it all started. It all started
yeah.
by going on because I'm a free spirit. I'm an artist. I'm like, so even and that's kind of how I go about my whole career even now. So yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. Yeah.
So you started off volunteering for with kids, and then that's where that passion grew, and then you were able to find a career that kind of meshes well with what you were already doing.
Yeah, and I already kind of had a background in like youth ministry and ministry,
Right.
and helping it. And then so when I was able to implement this program through this faith-based program called the Union, where they were getting state funding to implement this particular program,
Okay.
and I was able to just kind of get a base for it. Yeah, that's just kind of how I evolved from there.
So you have a bachelor's degree in social work as well as a master's degree in social work?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So right now, what would you say is your social work specialty? So we know the population you work with. What's your specialty?
So right now I am a school social worker. So I have my
Okay.
school social worker license. So I'm in the schools in a special ed program where I help
Okay.
develop IEPs, um,
Okay.
and develop develop the social emotional goals for students in the school system. Uh, it, uh, right currently I'm in the Romulus community school system.
Okay.
So that's my particular um population, my specialty when it comes to social work, but also I do private practice where I do therapy services,
Is that with
so
kids as
mental
well
health
or
services.
adults?
I do all. So
Okay.
I do kids just by nature. Is to be honest with you, there's a lot of mental health services that need to be like done with kids, and um but um but I do specialize with men dealing with men empowerment issues, and dealing with relationships. So I do couples therapy as well.
I'm glad you said that because I was going
Yeah.
to ask you about that. You know, your journey being, I have met like a lot of clients over the years where I felt like, man, if you just had like a black man therapist, like this would
Ah,
really be
yeah.
good for you.
Uh
So
huh.
tell us about your journey being a black man and a therapist, servicing men in the field as well as children. What has your journey been?
So um, it's a unique journey
Mhm.
because the the social work field is so in dire demand for men, and
Yes.
it's so to a certain degree it's been kind of wide open, for me to be able to be successful in the school context, especially like in the school context. um I find myself being able to be the specialist for the I will have to say one of the most disenfranchised population in the school is the boy, and more specifically the black boy, which is in many cases in the school context, because the school environment is so wrapped around behavior compliance,
Mhm.
and the um, I would say the over diagnosing of ADHD
Tell it.
for boys.
Mhm.
Um, being able to um, I say to be an advocate, to be able to speak on the behalf of boys, where it comes from a strength based self care perspective rather than just a behavior compliance model or way of thinking, which kind of promotes an institutionalized mindset where you do kind of see that school to pipeline, school to prison pipeline,
pipeline, yeah.
because it's a institutional type mindset of behavior compliance that doesn't really have boys in mind, because just by the nature of how they express themselves, how they learn, and validating their maleness, I should say. And I would say in therapy, it's definitely like I get referrals all the time, like dang, I need I've been looking for a black male therapist and I can't find one, and it's we're such a needle in a haystack, you know.
Literally.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't. In all honesty, I mean, just because you found one, it's like it's hard, because sometimes it doesn't always work out. Because so yes, it's a great demand for black men to be in the field, and I would say that men, but more particularly black men, have a sense of intuitiveness that they can bring to the field and bring to the client that is just missing by nature. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So
But it's also a challenge. Because
how so?
What happens? It's a challenge because sometimes you become the all-encompassing male figure. So what happens is it's just kind of, it's like you become the surrogate father. You become the uncle. You become the cousin. You become the so it's sometimes people people have ideas, especially like parents in kids' life. You become the person that can you fill these voids
all of
and
those
gaps
shoes, yeah,
that are missing out of my family, out of my community. And it's only so much a practitioner can do. And there's no replacing those missing members in the family and in the community.
Yes. So I was definitely looking at it from the perspective of, what we talk about, like the culturally sensitive practice, but not even like thinking about how to balance that, because like you said, it can be challenging, because then you start being seen as all of these things, but you can't fill all of those shoes. It's impossible. Yeah. So how do you balance that when you encounter that? Because that's real in our community. So how do you balance that?
Well, you mentioned culturally sensitive, and I think that is important, because it just the very presence of a black male validates a client's existence, right? It validates, it gives a sense of acceptance, gives a sense of value, and then a more empowered representation of who I am.
It goes a long way.
I see him. Yeah, it really does. So it goes a long way, and it can be leveraged. My blackness and my maleness can be leveraged, for the client's good. And the cultural relevance is the very thing that is kind of a restorative. It gives a restorative identity. It gives a sense of empowerment. To be honest with you, that's what I had to have for myself to be empowered. So you know, and understanding that dynamic of the mental work, the emotional development I had to have for myself to get where I am, and how it was so important for me to have an empowered um, representation
Yes.
of what I can at least associate with, and 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 cultural competence or relevance has more to do with whether you know where the person is coming from or not, is being able to bring that into treatment, bring that as a contributing factor to what we're going to use to um, make the life that you want, you
Right.
know. So
Right.
I'm not bringing my own values or my own morals into, which is the core, some of the core you know, principles
Right.
of social work, you
Right.
know. So yeah.
So my question, I do have like a lot of students and other social workers that are on this channel, and one of the things that people talk about is their internship experience.
Yeah,
Let's go back to your grad school internship experience. How was that for you?
it was challenging.
Oh, okay. Let's talk
it
about
was
it.
it, all right, so it was challenging because for one thing, when I was in school, I was a little bit more mature than many of my. So I would factor that in, and also just um, my my internship. Um, it was a struggle because I kind of felt like, because of my personality, because me being a male, it kind of is the challenge was, it seemed, I almost felt attacked. I had to be honest with you. I have to be
Okay.
honest with you,
Okay.
because I felt like because I wasn't the typical just yes person. You know what I'm saying? Like I was being, you know, targeted. Um, However, the actual field experience was so valuable. Like the field experience was so valuable, and I was able to learn a lot of different aspects of the, you know, before going into school social work. So when I got there, wasn't quite sure about everything, but I was confident. I was
Uh-huh.
confident to be able,
Uh-huh.
and the good thing is I was able to shift to another another internship, um, where I even got even a greater crash course of the IEP and the special ed process, where it was a center-based program for emotionally impaired kids. And I'm just like, wow, like it was such a crash course in special ed, in the process
Mhm.
of you know, from, so yeah, I mean, it was very valuable. Even the challenging stuff was valuable, because at the end of the day, I mean, these are the type of things that we have to deal with in real life, in
Uh-huh.
figuring out how to solve problems. And that's really what these experiences create is, you know, whether they're challenging or things seem unfair, that's life, you know. But it's just like the intern, like it really created, like, how do I solve a problem? How do I go about this? But also being able to see myself, like, how does my presence, not just how people perceive me, but
Right.
that's a part of, but really acknowledging how does my presence impact the people around me, and you know, and being more introspective about that. You know, not you know, so it was a real comprehensive process in learning. You
Mhm.
know, so
So you're saying that even with the challenges for, anybody that may be watching right now that is going through challenges with their field placement, you're saying that even with the challenges, you were able to learn from it because it prepared you for the real world.
that's the only opportunity. See, and that's the interesting thing. Like when it comes to um, being in the program, doing the internship, is that basically your education is what you make it. You have to, like, it's in your best interest to make it something that you can learn from. You know, and that's one thing that I was there for. So I was focused on that. While I'm here, I'm going to learn everything I want to learn because I got this wealth of research and information that I can get.
Right.
And I'm like, at the end of the day, like, it's important that you learn how to interact with all sorts of people when it comes to administration, staff people on the ground, people in research from all types, and just weren't much about, oh, this was unfair, this was fair, this wasn't unfair. It's really asked myself, is this the type of work that I want? Is this the type of organization that I want to be connected to? Seeing how the leadership structure is, would I want this? So this is not just looking at others in a sense to where what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right. It's self-discovery. Wow. And as you find yourself in your career, you continually figuring out, what do you want to do? Who do you want to work with? Mm-hmm. How are you going to develop what you do to set you apart from everyone else, especially like when it comes to the trajectory of your career, and not putting a cap on your career just because you're a social worker.
That's a good perspective. That's a good perspective. So I hear you say not focusing so much on those challenges, but using that just to learn about, okay, is this what I really want to do? Is it the kind of organization I really want to be in? Because again, that's a great place for you to find that out. I remember, go ahead.
No, because it's a great place to find that out because, and knowing when it's time to move, because sometimes you can, like, if you stay somewhere for too long, and it'll actually impact you worse. Right. It is just like, it comes to a point to where it's a learning thing, and it comes to a point where, okay, you just need to move on.
It's time to
and
go.
so yeah.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I did have a bad internship experience too, and I had to change my internship, the organization I was doing my internship with. But I also see value in what you're saying, as far as if it's just some things that's not working out and you're still getting what you need to get out of it, I would focus so much on what I'm getting out of it and using those other things as a learning experience.
Oh yeah, I had to leave. I had to leave though. I had to leave, especially.
So you had to leave from that internship as well. Okay.
Yeah. I had to, because I was kind of I did leave.
Okay.
And it was, but I left properly though, and that's definitely what that taught me. It's just like, no, don't go off on the director. Don't go off on the, keep it to yourself.
Don't do that.
It happens.
I mean, thank you for keeping it real as it relates to that. So I hope that, students that are watching this, or even people that are working, can learn from that, knowing when to leave and knowing sometimes when to choose your battles as well, because it sounded like you chose your battles at first and it just wasn't working out before you had to, exit. And that's important, knowing when to leave and knowing when to stay. So I hope that, people are able to get some good insight as it relates to managing or navigating your internship experience there, because I've had some people that talked about like really bad experiences, which is really unfortunate. So now I want to move on to, social issues. What social issues are important to you? I know you work with youth, but what other social issues are important to you?
So, the family system, family dynamic is definitely important to me. So that's one that was kind of like my field of study when I was in school. Understanding just like the the first main institution in a community or in society is the family. You know, and
Oh yeah.
and understanding that that principle. Um, I know one of my internships in my BSW, I was in community organizing. That was actually, it's interesting. That's the direction that I thought I was going to go. Then I end up going back to school, you know. But it definitely um, the urban community cities
Mhm.
like Detroit, because that's where I come from. I come from Detroit. I come from um, where where Detroit is you know predominantly black,
Mhm.
and how I've seen my city, from an economic, from a community, from a family standpoint, um, kind of gradually break down, from the school system to the, the economy, the housing market, and even seeing how um, uh, the guys I grew up with kind of um, wither away. Whether
Yeah, that's
they
rough.
were, dead, dead in jail, or just kind of in a rut, not being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's kind of like what I'm passionate about in and of itself. Like um, when it I struggle. I know for myself, even like this idea of blackness and how nuanced and diverse blackness means. And so um, it's interesting because like I hear people say black, and you'll have 10 people say, this is black, and you have 10 different answers. And you know, I've kind of grown to see, going through my study, like seeing blackness as a social political identity that that we've used to build American culture, and to gather politically, even though sometimes it's been kind of conflicted, and throughout the years.
Right.
So but I would so I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about blackness. I'm passionate about the urban, the urban communities, cities like Detroit. But one thing I realize is that it's so important that we learn to rebuild the number one institution, which is the family, and
Family.
restoring the members, specifically men, in that dynamic of that institution. Which
Mhm.
I realized that a lot of men, especially specifically black men, have opted out of many of the traditional institutions like school, the economy,
Yes.
the mainstream economy, and the family. All these foundational institutions that make up a community and society. Many black men you know, have opted out, and not, and a lot of us are socialized in what we call the street or the hood. And what's so interesting about it, a lot of us are resilient. A lot of us,
Oh man.
black men, are resilient, where we actually come out of that context and was socialized in that context, which maybe not had been validated by schools, or validated by the church or whatever like that. But they found resiliency, and then you will never know that they come from that context, because they rose up, they rose above, or from that context, or the stigma of that context, because it's
Mhm.
more of a stigma with the, I guess, the untraditional institution of the street, to
Mhm.
where it's connected to criminality. It's connected to certain things where that stigma. But I just know growing up that there's many things that I learned in the streets or being on the block. You know what I'm saying? Like where
Right, right,
I learned a lot of principles when it came to be a man in the street. So I'm really passionate about that, and especially for black males, that's kind of where I can relate to a lot of black males because I know that aspect of
their
the
reality.
counter cultural um, subculture of the black male in the street, not being socialized in the church, not in their families, feeling opted out of school, and finding a way, and it and really finding solace in the barbershop on the corner at
Right.
in different you know activities.
Right, right. And that, and you talking about that now also kind of reinforces what I was saying earlier about that cultural competency.
Just like, for example, how service agencies choose to service mothers and then fathers. Where you have, so you'll have agencies who, they'll do outreach on mothers. And like, let's just say there's a program that they want mothers to be a part of. And they get women, mothers to come together and just like, let's talk about your feelings. Let's express what you're going through, and then
I
you
know where
have
you're
women
going.
that will share. They'll share about
Uh-huh.
all these aspects of their being a mother and stuff like that, and they try to use. And sometimes agencies try to use that same frame to bring men, and men don't relate like that.
Right.
They don't relate like that. So even in the therapy space, I've seen that a lot as well. So uh, where a lot of men won't come to a group or something like that when it comes to emotional issues, because for one thing, that men don't relate in that way in expressing themselves like that, and they're not attracted to that. And the reality is that men are attracted to groups that they feel like they can get some form of validation, where they can where their manhood is being uplifted and empowered,
Uh-huh.
and that they can be in a safe place just to be, and there's no
Right.
pressing, and usually the emotions come out later. Like, so,
Right, right. It's just like the way it has
yeah,
to be presented needs to be different.
yeah.
Yeah. As we wrap up, one of the things that I want to ask you is for future social workers, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching this and they're like, oh my God, a male social worker, finally. What do you want people to know about social work? Being a man in this field, of African American Black man, what do you want people to know about social work?
So I want them to know that social work is, it opens. It's different than being like a counselor or a psychologist. As a social worker, you can really kind of connect to almost every aspect of life, um, with this competency and with your degree, and especially if you're creative, with so many opportunities for you to um, create a lane, and not just, and social work is not just case management. Social
Right.
work, social work is not just you giving somebody food stamps, or you trying to take away someone's kids. The career is kind of open to what you make it. And even when you look at the job market, it's important to not only look for social work positions, but you may, just like we talked about, like some many times a social worker, they're the coordinator to almost every aspect of of the of an agency or a
Right.
community, and being able to you know, because the social worker um, can definitely help um, bridge communities, bridge staff, provide support in so many aspects, from whether it may be a administrative, financial thing, or social emotional, or being able to go and do community practice that eventually evolves to some type of political pursuits.
Right.
So it's so vast
Like the macro
that
social work.
yeah. I mean, because that's still in me as well, even though a lot of the skills that I was able to learn in the community space, um, it helped me understand those systems in the school where and it's so open and vast that when you're in school, I would say while you're in school, definitely take advantage of every aspect of learning that you can, and
I agree with
and
that.
being a expert to what you want to pursue, because once you get out in the field, it's gonna be hard to say that you're gonna be doing a whole bunch of research. You kind of already kind of have an idea while you're in school. So when you're out in the field, because when you're in practice, it's harder. It's harder. So at least getting in your head the direction that you want to go, in the line of research, in the line of competency that you want, you can always refer back to that and build upon that when you get in the field. So I believe, um, you know, what you're developing while you're in school, to be honest with you, it shouldn't look too much from when you actually get out there.
Right. Right.
And it's important that I believe that social workers really think about, what do I want my trajectory to be? What does it look like, even if it doesn't exist in a position right now?
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, there are some people that have had to pivot, and that's okay. But to your point, it's important to use school to the best of your ability, like maximize all of that time, all of the resources that you have while you're in school, so that it can prepare you to for where you really want to be. I remember during grad school, one of my professors was like, okay, one thing I want you guys to figure out right now during this time is what population you cannot work with, because it'll be
Mm.
hard for you to try to figure that out once you're out in once you've graduated. And I was like, you know what? Okay. And that was a really good tip, because for me, it allowed me to be able to just focus on, okay, this is the population I want to work with. And it was talking about in terms of kids
Mm.
or adults or whatnot. It was like, figure that out now. And I think
Yeah,
that was a really great advice. It might not work for everybody, but I think that was really useful for me. So to your point, it's important to know, have an idea while you're in school and start working towards that, so it prepares you for your future when you start working.
yeah. I mean, and research is important, and what's so interesting is that once you get out in the field, it's important to people for people to know that I am competent. I know what I'm talking about. And in in all honesty, no one really knows exactly what you do, because you'll be serving, you'll talk to somebody in your agency, or in your company, and they know a social worker, but they're thinking like, well, I don't
Something
know what the
else.
heck they do.
Yeah, it's something else.
I don't know what the heck they do. I mean, just like I was in a case right now with the kid. Oh, well, he has his social worker and blah. I'm like, okay, like, well, what does a social worker do? Like, I mean, it's so but people have an idea of what they think you do, and a lot of times they kind of err on the side of I don't know what they do. So you always have to put your best foot forward. You always like especially black folk. It's important for you to be competent. It's
Right.
important for you to kind of know what everyone is doing. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting the role that we play. But if you up for the challenge, um, you can be one of the most valuable personnel in the room, in the
Absolutely.
building, and go up the ladder. To be honest with you, I am against the notion of this cap for social workers. You know, because and please guard against this, guys. You are going to be in school, and then they're going to say, well, social workers don't make a lot of money. You're not doing this for the money. And I understand what you're saying, but your career is what you make it. Your career is what you make it. And learning to be an entrepreneur, learning to create um, a position and in competency and expertise for yourself is very important. And social work has can allow you to do that.
So funny, like you went into the whole salary. That is so funny because I've gotten a lot of questions about that lately, and people are watching on YouTube from all like everywhere, and they'll be asking questions about salary, and that's something that I'm personally not quite sure I want to talk about because whatever it is that they say online, I have never fallen in that bracket. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's hard for me to say this is what you will make because when you're going into working with any company, they're looking at your skill set and that's what they're using to judge how much they want to pay you. So it is different for everybody. Now, I'm not totally saying don't look at the internet, but I think it could give you an idea. However, don't, like you were saying, don't box yourself into those numbers or those figures, Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. So that's why it's important for you to focus on your competency, focus on your own expertise. When you get into that job, it's cool to see when a position is social work, but don't limit your job search to just social work.
We're called other things too. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of social workers that are program coordinators, that are directors. You have social workers that found themselves in, K-12 administration. You have a lot of social workers that have, I've seen some social workers be very ingenious with how they made themselves invaluable in the market.
So again, going back to what we're saying, don't limit yourself because literally in this field, the sky is the beginning. It's the beginning. Yeah.
That's it. I'm with that. So I kind of, when I was in school, I kind of blocked out that notion, and the people who thought like that, I'm like, oh, okay. And it's cool if like case management is your thing, that's your thing. I mean, it's a high turnover rate for a reason.
Right.
It's a high turnover rate for a reason, and that's why it's important for social workers to really dial in on what they do.
Exactly. Wow. Thank you so much, Alan. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I like the direction our conversation went today. I just had to put down my questions and just continue on and, with what we're talking about. Thank you so much. I appreciate
that. That was
time.
Excellent.
Yes. Yeah, this is really good. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for, coming in and talking to people. This is really, this is so it's so needed, and your time,
Yeah.
I value your time. Thank you for everything. Is there any last words before you go?
Oh no, I appreciate you inviting me on. And if you ever want to invite me back in to talk about any particular topic, uh, concerning the profession, I'll be willing to come
Thank
back.
you so much,
Awesome.
Alan,
Thank you
for spending
so
some time with us
much.
today and talking to us about your social work journey, as well as offering advice on how to survive the internship experience. Thank you for that. It was a good conversation. We went into discussing a lot of topics that I believe will be useful for those that are watching. So thank you for spending your time with us today to share your wealth of knowledge and experience with us. Thank you for watching, and I hope that I'll be able to see you all next time on my next video. On your way out, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Follow me on Instagram as well at millennial_social worker to keep up with me. I'll see you guys next time on my next video. God bless you and take care. Bye.